Scott Cohen, thanks so much for joining us on Wall Street Unplugged again.
Thank you, Frank. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No. The last time you were on a few months ago, your stock was in the 4-ish range. It's now over $10 based on a lot of positive developments. Now, WRAP is a position a lot of my listeners own. My subscribers are in at much lower prices than where it's trading today. And I want to get to a lot of stuff today, right? Recent earnings call where your stock did pull back over ties, the new CEO announcement, and also short sellers and things like that. But I want to start from the beginning to get the newest listeners up to speed. As someone myself who's been covering small caps for over 2 decades, I mean, the progress you have made with this company, especially off the past 18 months since I got shot with more like the prototype, I don't know if that was a great idea or not, is remarkable. Can you talk about that, of how far you've come in 18 months? Because when I compare this to Taser and where you are, you're light years ahead of them. It's kind of amazing how far you've come.
Sure. Yeah. So let's just start with the product. Yeah, that's true. When you were wrapped in my apartment almost 2 years ago, 18 months ago, product was working probably 40 to 50% of the time. When I say working, I mean wrapping consistently. So it was anyone's best guess. The laser, I think we just had put the laser on. It wasn't stable. We were using many more suppliers at the time. Our costs were higher. Now I'm happy to report that this wrap, the bowler wrap's working over 90% of the time. And we're closing in on that. It's just getting better and better. We're using less suppliers. We've been able to bring our costs down. And now with the new hire that I'm sure we're going to get into with Mark as CEO, he's got a lot of changes on the manufacturing side, on the logistics side, that's really going to drive costs down. And we're hopeful that the effectiveness of the product is even going to get better from here. That's one. So starting with product, training, Frank, when you first got shot, we didn't even have training established. We've got a whole master trainer program, train the trainer program, that's been in place for almost a year now. We've trained hundreds of departments. There's thousands of line officers trained. Just take one city right now, LAPD. We've got over 1,100 trained. So I don't even have the total number of trained, but it's in the tens of thousands. So we had no training, barely had customer support set up. Our balance sheet, when you first met us, was probably at the time around 15 million. And I'm glad to be able to talk about a $45 million balance sheet at this time. Liquidity has increased in just the way that the shares trade, where we were in maybe 1 or 2 departments at the time in pilot tests going on. And now we're close to 200 departments. The C-suite has just improved up and down at the executive level. So we're just bringing better people on. The product's getting better. The environment has changed so much. As we all know, this is really, people are begging for an alternative. The communities are begging for more training. The police are wanting and needing alternatives to what they've got on their belt right now. So you got product improvements, you got an environment that's perfect for this time for our product, and you got leadership that just gets better and better. So and of course a balance sheet, just to name a few.
So, when I look at this and you tell me that, it's great. I didn't really know that it was only working 40, 50% of the time and the laser was a little off. So it's good to know that now, I guess. But it just goes to show you, guys, I'm there for you. I wanted to do the research. I got shot by this, and then I put out a video to everybody just to show everyone. But for me, the big story was you had retired police there. And when I interviewed them, for me, this was more than something I thought people could make a lot of money off your stock. I got emotionally involved in this, seeing their faces, interviewing them, where they were like, they're in the field for over 30 years, some of these guys, and even longer. And they just knew if they had this device, it could have saved lives. And nobody, what I learned too, they're like, nobody wants to take out, even if it's a clean shoot, you never, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. And they've seen so many officers like that, like deal with that, right? We only hear about those stories where the 4 or 5% that are bad, or even less than that. But most police officers, they don't want to use their gun. They don't want to shoot anyone. And just learning about the device then, when your stock was just on the pink sheets and getting into this thing, is pretty incredible. So, no, I appreciate you letting me in, and even my subscribers too, recommending it very, very early, which I want to thank you for. Now, A lot has happened.
When you came in, we had probably maybe 100 to 150 investors. We hadn't hired Tom Smith, the co-founder of Taser. So you came even before Tom. You came when, like I said, maybe 100 or 150 different investors. Today we have over 25,000. And the interesting thing about it is they're mostly from law enforcement. Over 25% of our shareholders, it turns out, are from either law enforcement or they have friends that are in law enforcement. So you were way before any of that started, super, super early. And you're right. This isn't just a product that the community feels good about or can relate to. Say, yeah, we need something like this. We need an alternative. But the police themselves, turns out that the police themselves are open armed to us. They're embracing this, and they're excited about it, and they're pushing for this cause. So we've got both the communities and the people that are serving us, the law officer, the police, actually supporting this, coming from both ends, which is really unique, very unique for any business to have that kind of welcomeness around our product.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know a lot of my subscribers are in this early and should be in below $10, all of them, if not maybe a tiny bit more, but most of them are doing well in your stock. However, with that said, we've seen the stock go up to $13, a little bit higher than that if you're counting like the intraday high. And then when you reported earnings, it pulled back. And I want to talk about, some of those things, that the reasons why it might pull back. But I want to talk about the biggest news. And I know this is really big for you too, is the hiring of a new CEO, Mark Thomas. This is a guy that's a veteran, has experience in really, really, really growing companies. What does he bring to the table for you, and why is this a game changer?
Mark brings, think about this guy's background. He's coming from Stanford as an engineer, then opting to go into special forces, then opting to from there right into the White House, and then from the White House working for a senator, then getting all simultaneous to getting a law degree, getting a master's in business, and getting his engineering degree. So he's doing all this while he's serving the country, then serving the country at the White House. Then he goes to GE to run multiple divisions at GE, and then goes into private equity. That kind of experience around manufacturing, logistics, even sales and marketing. He's got it all. And his leadership skills are what's really stood out. This guy knows how to lead. He led while he was in service. He's led while he was at GE. He's had numerous leadership roles when he was working at the private equity fund. So Mark, at probably the things that come to mind of why he's going to have so much impact is his ability to lead and to make sound judgments. Is another big one that I think we all, when interviewing Mark, were able to relate to and see very clearly that he had those just two fundamental qualities about him that we thought could have big impact for this business.
Yeah, I mean, hiring Mark, I thought was amazing. Another huge positive where you have over $40 million cash on the balance sheet. I mean, you're a small cap company that, again, someone's covering this industry a while. That's where you want to be, right? You want to be where, hey, our product is no longer like a proof of concept. It's actually being sold in law enforcement magazines, and we have a huge cash hoard to market this. It's the perfect position for a small cap. With that said, one of the negatives I think we're on the call, what I hear is they expect the backlog to be a little bit bigger, and the backlog is 1.5 million. However, for me, I looked at it as, we're in a COVID world. You were doing hands-on training, which requires a lot of travel, but now you announced a virtual training, which is amazing. And I've seen this up front even on some of your calls. Talk about the backlog, because right now, if we see this, and I know you know this as well, for the stock to get to the next level like it does with Taser, and it's much faster, much ahead of their growth trend where you are compared to where they were the first 24 months, first 5 years, probably 6 years. Talk about the orders or how many police stations are testing this device, and do you see those orders going up considerably? Because it seems like everywhere I look, they're testing this. I'm hearing it mentioned to the president, directly to the president from politicians. We need to have more of these. But eventually, as you know, you want to see that number grow.
So a couple different ways to talk about address. Well, let's get to that question a couple different ways. Starting with just Tom is a co-founder and architect of Taser, says it took Taser 15 years to do what we're doing in 1 year. Okay, so just starting there. Police aren't quick to change. It's hard. This is a group that has unions involved and has lots of different take points politically. So it doesn't happen overnight, but when it happens, it really has sustainability. And when that change takes place, we think it's going to be a real domino effect. So being mindful that our quarters are choppy in the beginning, just like any new business. It's a new technology. It requires training. It requires marketing and just some time to get through budgets. But with that said, the pace in converting from the demonstrations to orders is happening. And it's hard to get the real good, strong visibility at this point in time. But the more that it's only been really 12 months since we started selling it, maybe just slightly more than that. And so as we do more demos, as we have more pilots running, as we put out more quotes, I don't know if you were on that quarterly call in the second quarter, but we talked about 30 to 40 different inquiries coming in from departments a day. So that was happening a quarter before. Last year, this time, 30 to 40 inquiries coming inbound a month, or actually probably not even that. We were having that probably on a quarterly basis. We're having that on a daily basis now. So the pace of this has just picked up. And you want to talk about the backlog? Yeah, it's a lumpy business right now because we're just really coming out. But the big thing to look for is look for those major cities to start rolling out these units on a full deployment. Look for some big international contracts that will be, we think they'll be chunky, but when they come, you should see that reflected in the top line, and you'll see that also reflected in the backlog. So in the beginning, it is chunky and not clear, but as we start getting into the rollout, I think you'll start to see things smooth out and it will be more consistent. So that's how we're seeing it at this point.
Yeah, and you're definitely right about Taser. I mean, that's something I covered in the single digits when I was at street.com and just saw their market cap swell. It's over $8 a share. It's close to a $6 billion company today. And it was incredibly lumpy back then, just, before they really started getting going and just light years ahead of them. So I love that. But in today's world, it's so different with social media. 3 months is a long time, right? But for me, I love that you explain 18 months of how far you come. I want to talk to you because you're familiar with this, but because you're in the industry for a long time, myself as well. When you look at short sellers, I mean, you have short sellers and they use platforms like Seek and Alpha, a whole bunch of other ones where they'll build up a huge short position. You can't do this on the long side. You can do it on a short side for some reason. Build up a massive short position, come out with, whatever you want to say, and disclaimer, it's going to say this, we think it's reliable, but it may not, or whatever. And then, these guys could be out of their position within 3-4 days. But those short reports I've seen, I've got a lot of emails from subscribers saying, should we worry? And I read the whole thing. And, he highlighted the revenue numbers and how, we haven't seen any big departments and stuff like that. But he also highlighted a lot of things that highlighted a lot of things that were just out there and didn't make sense and were lies. How do you deal with this as a company? Because management teams deal with it differently all the time. And I've seen some deal with it bad, some deal with it good. But, when you're looking at this and you're looking at long-term goals, do you pay attention to things like this? I know you see it coming, but it's kind of funny how almost every small cap that I've covered that has this massive growth trend, you always see this, it pulls back a little bit, but it's kind of just like someone speculative and just trying to make money really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me answer the first part. So yeah, we first started probably about 12 months ago. The first short started building his position, and they were out loud about it. There was a published report on it. And the short really never went away. My belief, and I'm not the only one that has this opinion, is the short's just getting more and more, I should say, out loud and accelerating their efforts to advertise this position. They've been short since $3. So when a stock goes against you, you're short at $3, and now you're in the double digits. that becomes more painful for a short. So you start figuring out how many, if you can get more people in the short idea, you can scare out retail. And that's precisely what's happened. They were marketing that short report weeks, or probably a week before it came out. They were really trying to get people behind it and trying to scare retail investors the best they could, which is fine. So to answer your question, does it worry us? It would have worried me more if we had $3 million on the balance sheet and a stock that wasn't really trading. That would be concerning. If we had a weak pipeline and weren't confident about our business, that would be concerning, and felt like it could run certain product liabilities that would be hard to account for. That would be concerning. And all those things still concern us, but we're not going to be hurt by a balance sheet. Our capital with that kind of cash position, we're going to need capital for years to come. So I'm not worried about that. The product gets better and better. When we wrapped you 18 months ago, pretty effective, but now it's a completely different story. You're not moving post a wrap. You have no chance to move in, particularly when we're hitting high and low. You've got it's that much more restricting. So I'm grateful that the liquidity the interest in this has increased and continues to increase. Like I said, when you first came on, there was probably 200 to 300 shareholders. Now it's 25,000. I think we jumped 8,000 in 6 weeks. So I don't think that's going to slow down. I think people are hearing about this, they're reading about it, they're seeing this, they're connecting George Floyd issue and that situation, the protest, with our company, with our product. And so to put those two together, our product with the current environment, is really powerful, which I think should get more and more people interested and engage more and more people. I think our shareholders will go, that number increases, liquidity increases. And like I said, we're not a balance sheet risk anymore. So the shorts, it doesn't bother me. It never really has, to answer your question. I think the more short they get, as we start to hit on our business plan, it becomes a really painful situation for them, particularly if they've been short in the low single digits. It's expensive to hold that short position. The cost to borrow the stock is over 50%. So in other words, if you're lending shares out, or if you're borrowing shares, you're going to pay 50% interest. So when you're paying 50% interest and you're down, you started shorting it at 3 and now the stock's over 10, that gets very expensive and could be very dangerous, because if we have a taser-like moment, like you catch that big order in the stock in taser in 1 year, and you know this, went from 5 to 105 in a 12-month period of time. That was because of 1 or 2 orders that they got. If that happens in our situation, which is certainly possible given the size of the departments we're working at domestically and internationally, you could, as a short, you could be put out of business. So it's a very dangerous, shorting a story stock is very, very dangerous. And when those story stocks actually start performing, you have a taser-like moment where your stock goes from, up 20-fold.
No, it definitely makes sense. I'm glad you brought up like the shorts and the interest on the shorts and how that is. But I want to get back to one more thing here. Is you would talk, how many departments did you say was it inquiring about the device? Law enforcement departments?
On the quarter call, you heard that we get 30 to 40 a day for the last 6 weeks or 2 months. It's probably been. You heard that it's that the inbound inquiries that we get are over 50 a day. These are from departments spread out throughout the country.
So talk about, I want to get to that virtual training part, because I mean, this was huge for you, right? Because you're I remember talking to you, and you're traveling a lot, and your teams are traveling a lot, and they're training these officers on site. But has that resulted, it looks like that more people are inquiring, but what about the training part? So are you still I think the number was 250 plus police departments are currently, training or be trained or whatever it was. I forgot that number. But are you seeing that number increase now? Because, if you didn't go to virtual, it would be impossible for these officers to train. That's why I'd be nervous about the orders. But talk about the virtual and how important that is, because it seems like, officers and law enforcement agencies are perfectly okay with that, as long as you're training us and we have that certification.
Yeah, so there has been virtual training available to large and small departments. The problem is just cost. The virtual training has been expensive. There's just several companies that manufacture that equipment. They're big screens. They cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for that kind of installation. So it's a big commitment. We've gotten that price way down with this new partnership that we launched, and it is going to be a subscription-based model, and it's the virtual training that we're going to be doing that it will allow you to get this certification without us having to be there. So this is as much about, you can't just put the bowler wraps out there without training. So it does complement what we're doing. But we actually think the virtual training piece of the business could be much larger than bowl wrap itself. So you have bowl wraps or not, training is going to be a massive component of any department, big and small. And that's obvious just with all the noise about defunding police and what we're hearing about how police are handling these protests and handling today's environment. But we all know that to have an offering, have a training offering around bowler wrap and allow them to deploy without us being there really scales our business, helps us with not having to, it's impossible to service 18,000 departments around the country. So this gets us way more feet on the street. We're able to certify at a much faster rate. And most importantly, we're able to train people how to deploy this product in a safe, effective manner remotely, which is a really awesome, an awesome step up for us. Saves us a lot of time and money.
And I guess just the last thing here, I guess what everybody wants to know is talk about the next steps for the company, right? You put yourself in a position I mentioned earlier where a nice cash hoard there, you're small cap where now this is being sold. You have a product that's actually being sold. So it's no more that, hey, we have to prove this concept. It works. So what are the next steps now that you're in this great position as a small cap company? And I know you talked about new bowler wraps. They're not going to be as loud when they're shot because they're very loud. So I got shot by this thing. And if you do that in Times Square, it's going to scare the crap out of people. I know you talk about where they shoot two and not just one, but talk about that, maybe your growth plans of what investors can expect going forward, because we all know, okay, we have to get more orders, but what are the next stages? Because hiring this new CEO, it's clearly like you understand, like it's about growth right now, and you're going all in on this.
Yeah. So just to go back for a sec, once you start, we feel like this is going to be a need to have product, because if your officers are going to a dispute or confrontation and they're using a aggressive use of force, let's say a gun, taser, pepper spray, and they don't start out with a lower use of force, we think that is going to be more and more criticized. It's going to be looked at in a negative way. And so this is going to be a required piece of equipment to come early with the bowler wrap. One big department, and now we're testing and deployed in several large cities, but one big one that goes full deployment will really, we think, not only wake up that area, let's say that state or that region, but should start to open up the rest of the country. And it might even start internationally, where you have one country deciding to go full deployment, and it could have a ripple effect back here in the States. So I'm looking for I think we're all looking for one or two of these departments to go full deployment and sending a message that will be heard around the world. When you get that coveted real estate on the belt, there hasn't been a new device put on law enforcement's belt in this country in 30 years since Taser. You start seeing bowler wrap show up in those local communities with on the officer's belt. That's coveted real estate, almost impossible to get on. But once you're there, Frank, you start getting into other business lines. You start getting into the data capture. You start getting into cameras. You start getting into being able to pivot into other areas as long as you're on that belt. We've been approached or talked about this by plenty of strategic partners. And the big question is, if we're on the belt, then we could go lots of different ways. And clearly, Taser took advantage of that real estate that they were able to get on to, and created a $6 billion market cap as a result of that. We're still we're really in the early stages. And if it becomes clear that we're getting on that belt and we're capturing that real estate, one small department or large department at a time or country, then you'll start seeing some new lines of business that we'll probably be getting into really quickly because we own the space. We're there. We're present. And from getting once you go from the belt, there's lots of other ways to sell into those departments. So those are probably that's the next big play for us. Establishing space on the belt, I think, will unlock the value that was fortunate enough for the Taser investors to experience a decade ago or so. And I'd like to believe that we're next.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, Scott, listen, I love you coming on because you don't come on when your stock's at all-time highs. You come on even when your stock pulled back to 4 with all COVID and everything going on and stuff. And for me, I want to always be transparent with my subscribers. So I know a lot of people do own this because of me. And you coming on and just giving us an update, I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. I know it's crazy. And I just want to say, thanks for that update. I really, really appreciate it, buddy.
Hey, Frank, thanks for your support. And we are as strong as we've ever been with the leadership, with the C-suite, with Mark, with the new people that have been coming on board, with our balance sheet, with the training protocols, with the development of the new product. This is in the environment. We're fortunate to be here, and you were first. So we are respectful and very grateful for that early on support.
No, I appreciate it. All right. I appreciate it, Scott. And hopefully we'll have you on soon to update us. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Super. Thanks, everybody.